A film that's on Shudder currently, the horror film app, streaming service, from 2019, German film, entitled The Golden Glove. It's not about a boxer so much, although it's about a guy who kind of roughs people up. This is the true story of a German serial killer in the early 70s. Fun for the whole family. This was really grim. This was disturbing. This was hard to watch. Not wildly explicit in terms of what this guy does, but the tone is just gross and grim. Basically, it's this strange man who hangs out in this grimy bar in Germany, and he keeps luring these sort of elderly prostitutes to his house and does them in. And it's a disgusting life this person leads. It's grim, sad, desperate lives everybody in the film leads, and it's just a place you don't really want to be. Certainly not in this guy's apartment, but it's wow. Yeah, it's just watched it the other night, so it's still pretty fresh in my memory, and there's not a lot to say about it other than it's just following this guy as he lures people back to his house and as he does them in. There are strange moments of comedy in this film that I don't know how I felt about. They were not like wacky slapstick. There are no pies in the face in this film. There are other things in the face, but some of the denizens of the bar where he hangs out would insult each other and crack wise on occasion. And it was, what they said was pretty amusing, but at the same time, how grim this film is overall, it felt like really poor taste to me to have any humor in it. And I know a lot of people feel like you have to have humor in horror films, or you have to have some levity in films that are very, very heavy to give the audience a break. And maybe that's what they were going for. But I just remember thinking, dude, this isn't funny because I know what's coming up next. And you can make me think I'm getting a little bit of an oasis of levity in this moment, but I know I'm going back to misery in a minute. The lead in the film is a younger actor than he appears in the film, with some prosthetics to look like the actual person. This is one of those films that does what I love, which is under the credits, you see photos of the actual people who were involved. And it's this weird kind of sick game to play, but it's like, oh wow, they did a great job of making that, murder victim look like the actual murder victim. But they did. And the photos you see of the inside of this guy's apartment look exactly like the sets in the film. So it looks like a lot of trouble was taken to really recreate this hellscape as accurately as they could. I didn't really enjoy the performance as much as you can enjoy anything in this movie of the lead, the man who plays the murderer. It felt very mannered. It felt the way he would walk with the strange gait that he had and the way he would behave through the makeup and the prosthesis. It really felt like I was watching somebody in like a sketch, like somebody who was playing a bad guy in like a comedy sketch. It wasn't really broad and outrageously silly. It just took me out of the film because everybody in the movie, every person in that bar, every victim, it felt like I was just watching that person. And that's why this film was so disturbing, is it felt like you were there. It felt like you were in this nightmare that you couldn't escape, and you couldn't, you close your eyes in this nightmare and your eyelids are transparent. You can't not see this stuff. But when it came down to that lead actor, I felt like I was watching somebody play acting. It felt like I was watching somebody pretend to be this guy. And maybe ultimately that was a saving grace of this movie. Not a saving grace, but maybe that was a good thing in that it was a way for me to momentarily escape from the horror that I was watching, and that there was something that felt like it wasn't real in this movie because the rest of it felt too damn real, to be honest. This isn't the kind of movie that is for many people. If you're a true crime fan or fan, I'm a fan of people killing people. If you're a enthusiast for true crime and find this sort of thing interesting, if you like grim reality-based horror films or serial killer stories, this film will be effective. I don't necessarily want to say you'll enjoy this film because I can't say I enjoyed this film. I thought it was well made. I thought it was very effective and disturbing. It's the kind of movie you think about afterwards. It's the kind of movie, and too often this gets said, but it is the kind of movie you really kind of want to take a shower after you watch it because everybody in the film is just gross and filthy and unclean, and they make it a point of how bad this guy's apartment smells, and you learn why it smells that way, and it's just awful. Well made, but awful. And there's a song that they play at the end of the movie that I thought was kind of in poor taste. I think they're trying to be cute, but after what I just witnessed, I'm like, I don't need cute. I need to put on Ace Ventura: Pet Detective right now and just flush my mind for a while. This reminded me of a movie called Angst, which is also on Shudder. Another, I believe, German film where you are just with this murderer and you can't get away. A lot of horror films, you know, the murderer does their thing, but you follow the victims for a while, or you follow the police trying to find out who the murderer is. But films where you're just with the murderer all the time, those are kind of the worst to try to get over, because you're just with this awful, awful person. Angst was one that was like that. A film called 10 Rillington Place, British film about a serial killer, Christie, I believe his name was. That's pretty disturbing too. Maybe a little more theatrical than Angst and Golden Glove were. Golden Glove being, I've been rambling so long, the film I'm talking about is called The Golden Glove. If you saw The Golden Glove, I would recommend Angst. It's more unpleasant misery. If you've seen Angst and enjoyed that unpleasant misery, I would recommend The Golden Glove. At any rate, I've rambled on long enough about this. It was disturbing, it was highly effective, it was very well made, and it's out there if you want to experience it. On Shudder, The Golden Glove.